The Doppelganger Chapter 1, The First Encounter. Office building. Evening. Jane Walker, a young professional in her late 20s, is working late at her office. The building is quiet, with most employees already gone for the day. She stretches, glancing at the clock showing it's almost 9 p.m. She decides to head home. Parking garage. Night. Jane walks to her car in the dimly lit parking garage. As she approaches her car, she hears footsteps echoing. She turns, seeing a shadowy figure that looks strangely familiar. She shakes off the feeling and gets into her car, driving home. Next, Jane's apartment. Night. Jane arrives at her apartment, a modern building in a bustling part of the city. She parks and heads inside, still feeling uneasy about the parking garage encounter. Jane's apartment. Night. Jane goes through her evening routine, trying to relax. She hears a knock at her door and, peering through the peephole, she sees herself standing there. She opens the door, but no one is there. Shaken, she locks the door and checks her apartment thoroughly before going to bed. Chapter 2. The Disturbing Sightings. At coffee shop. Morning. The next morning, Jane grabs coffee at her favorite shop before heading to work. As she waits in line, she notices a woman sitting at a corner table who looks exactly like her. The woman is dressed in Jane's usual style and even has her mannerisms. Jane approaches cautiously. "Jenny, excuse me, do I know you?" The woman looks up, her face identical to Jane's, but her eyes are cold and unfeeling. "Doppelganger? No, I don't think so." Jane is taken aback, feeling a chill run down her spine. She quickly leaves the coffee shop, spilling her coffee in her haste. Chapter 3. The Encroachment. Office building. Day. At work, Jane tries to concentrate but can't shake the encounter from her mind. Her phone buzzes with a message from a coworker. Coworker's message: "Hey, saw you at lunch. Didn't know you like sushi." Confused, Jane texts back. Jane's message: "I wasn't at lunch. Are you sure it was me?" Coworker's message: "Positive. You even waved." Jane's heart races. She hadn't left her desk all afternoon. Jane's apartment. Night. That evening, Jane returns home, paranoid and anxious. She locks the door and checks the windows, drawing the curtains tightly. As she settles in for the night, her phone rings. It's her mother. Mother on phone. "Jane, honey, why did you ignore me at the store today?" "Janimum, I wasn't at any store today." "Mother, but I saw you. You were buying groceries." Jane's blood runs cold. Someone who looks exactly like her is living her life. Chapter 4. The Investigation. At library. Day. Determined to find answers, Jane visits the local library to research doppelgangers. She finds old books and articles about folklore and urban legends. The stories are chilling, describing doppelgangers as omens of death or malevolent beings. Librarian: "Can I help you with something?" Jenny: "I'm looking for information on doppelgangers. Real cases, not just folklore." The librarian gives her a knowing look and leads her to a restricted section. Librarian: "These are accounts from people who claimed to have encountered their doppelgangers. Be careful. This is not something to take lightly." Jane reads through the accounts, each more terrifying than the last. Many end in tragedy, with the original person being replaced or driven mad. Chapter 5. The Confrontation. At Jane's apartment. Night. Jane returns home with a plan. She sets up cameras around her apartment, determined to catch the doppelganger. As she reviews the nights, she sees nothing unusual. But then on the fifth night, she sees herself entering the apartment at midnight, when she was definitely asleep in her bed. Apartment. Living room. Night. Armed with this evidence, Jane waits in the living room, clutching a kitchen knife. At midnight, the door creaks open and the doppelganger steps inside. It smiles, a sinister expression on its face. "Jane, who are you? What do you want?" "Doppelganger, you, Jane. And I'm here to take back what's mine." The doppelganger lunges at Jane, and a struggle ensues. Jane manages to stab the doppelganger, but instead of bleeding, It dissolves into a shadowy mist, disappearing into the darkness. Chapter 6. The Unraveling It. Jane's apartment day. The next morning, Jane feels exhausted but relieved. She reviews the footage, but there's no sign of the doppelganger. It's as if the encounter never happened. She goes to work, but everyone is acting strange around her. Her boss calls her into the office. "Boss Jane, we need to talk about your behavior lately." "Jane, what do you mean?" "Boss, you've been missing meetings, acting erratically. People are concerned." Jane realizes the doppelganger has been sabotaging her life. She decides to take matters into her own hands. Chapter 7. The Terrifying Originate. Abandoned building night. Jane follows a lead she found in the library to an abandoned building on the outskirts of town. It's rumored to be a place where dark rituals were performed. Abandoned building night. Building is decrepit, filled with dust and decay. Jane finds a hidden room in the basement covered in strange symbols and old, dusty mirrors. In the center of the room is a large, ornate mirror, its surface dark and foreboding. Jane steps closer, seeing her reflection. Suddenly, the reflection smirks, and the doppelganger steps out of the mirror. "Doppelganger, you should have stayed away." "Jane, who are you?" "What are you, doppelganger?" "I am your shadow, your darkness, created by the pain and fear you've hidden away." The doppelganger reveals that it was born from a traumatic event in Jane's past, something she had tried to forget. It feeds on her fear and aims to replace her. In Chapter 8. The Final Battle. Abandoned building night. Jane confronts her doppelganger, a fierce battle of wills and strength. The doppelganger is powerful, fueled by Jane's darkest emotions. But Jane fights back, determined to reclaim her life. "Jane, you're just a part of me. You don't control me." Using a shard of a broken mirror, Jane stabs the doppelganger, which lets out a horrifying scream. The creature dissolves into a shadowy mist, disappearing for good. Chapter 9. Aftermath. Jane's apartment day. Jane returns home, feeling a sense of peace for the first time in weeks. She cleans up her apartment, throwing away anything that reminds her of the doppelganger. She reaches out to her friends and family, reconnecting with them and explaining what happened. Office building day. At work, Jane's colleagues notice a change in her. She's more confident and grounded. Her boss gives her another chance, and Jane seizes it, proving her worth. Chapter 10. New Beginnings. Park day. Jane sits in a park, enjoying the sunshine and the sounds of life around her. She has faced her darkest fears and come out stronger. She knows the doppelganger was a manifestation of her own inner demons, and she is determined never to let them control her again. As she watches children playing and people walking their dogs, she smiles, ready to embrace her life with renewed hope and strength. Fade out.